can see you, Kirk.
Chang.
Can you see me?
I'm bloodsucker. You're gonna do your dirty work now. Do you hear me? Do you?
Set a course. For home.
I'm Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. Shield inside all ships. Resistance is futile.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Papa's got a brand new pig bag, and guess what? Archer's got a brand new Enterprise. This is a new episode of the Trek Brothers podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Shaun.
Hola, Shaun. ¿Cómo está?
I am alright, and I don't know enough Spanish to respond to you in that tongue.
Yo no sé either. So have you finally seen Star Wars after this? It's been a month officially.
Let me tell you a story real quick about Star Wars. I have not seen Star Wars, and Star Wars got spoiled for me this past week. So, maybe I should go watch movies in a reasonable amount of time if I don't want them spoiled.
Oh, that's too bad. But yeah, you can't wait a long time. The longer you wait, the likely it would be that would happen.
Exactly, yeah. I try to keep my head kind of in the ground. People were actually really good about Star Wars. I think more so with Star Wars than any other movie that I've encountered. People are really, how would you say it, like very respectful about others not seeing it and spoiling.
That's really good. Do you think that happened in 1980?
No.
I don't either. I don't think that happened.
I don't think
with
people
Spock
cared
either.
as much back then.
Yeah. They were going to see it anyway.
Yeah.
Probably like the next day.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So this is already, what is this? This is episode 11 already.
Episode 11, yeah.
This is crazy. We've been doing this 11 weeks. I've been doing this longer than my longest relationship. I'm just kidding. That should be like a thing. I don't know why that should be a thing. It should just be a thing. All right, let's get back to Star Trek. We have a podcast to do for the fans. All right, let's get to News Trek.
I can see you, Kirk.
Chang.
Can you see me?
I'm bloodsucker.
Well, it's not the news.
Dirty work now. Do you hear me? Do you?
Set a course.
All right, that's getting edited out. To the news.
All hands, brace for impact. Engage.
I like after I played it, I just kept listening to it. Okay, so some big news, sort of big news, I suppose. We got a good look, thanks to the people at Entertainment Tonight, of the new bridge for Star Trek Beyond, and we got a little info that is interesting. I don't know if this is true because he said it in a completely jokingly manner, and I don't know if Entertainment Online didn't know that he was just acting, like he was just saying that it was, or if he was being completely serious, or what. But apparently Sulu might have a baby in this new movie.
What?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the videos.
And the new Enterprise looks kind of different. It's more closed off. It's not as open. And there's not as many, like, computer screens, like, in the middle of nowhere. Like, you remember that weird robot dude that was in the last movie? And he was like, "Hull breach, Captain," but he was like a robot. It was Lobot is what it was.
Yeah, it was.
And he was just, like, at a weird console, like, in the middle of the bridge. Well, that's, like, gone. That's not even there anymore. So the bridge looks a little weird, and it like the consoles of the navigators, like they sit a little bit further up, and they're like a much different screen. It looks like so. Those are pretty cool pictures. I don't know. What do you think about Sulu having a baby?
Well, maybe she will helm the Enterprise B if they keep some sort of continuity going on. So, I guess why not?
Yeah, they would have to reference that, huh? I'm sure they would. I don't mean that in a good way either, because they like to reference things like that, like the Tribble.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be an Enterprise without a Sulu at the helm. I could just imagine something. The possibilities are just endless. Well, that's all the news I really have. There wasn't much out there. Do you have any news?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, we can move on then. Let's move on to Verdict Track.
Consider your verdict.
What is your verdict, Shaun?
Oh, I've got the thumbs up verdict this week. This is going to be a little bit more, shall we say, cerebral or maybe abstract than most things I talk about. But I want to talk about the availability of Star Trek. So pretty much anybody that wants to watch Star Trek can watch Star Trek now. Maybe not all the movies at once, but any show that you want to watch, it's at your fingertips. It's on, I think the CBS site has all of them. I know for sure Netflix has all of them. Hulu has all of them. I think it's just a wonderful thing that, at this point, we're 10 years out from any sort of new shows coming out, so they don't have anything to hold on to or try to profit off of as far as holding it back from the public. So we've got all 5 shows, 6 if you include the animated series, out on any sort of streaming service or the main streaming services that you have, and I think it's amazing. It's great. The fact that Star Trek Enterprise is streaming on Netflix has almost made me a Star Trek Enterprise fan. If it weren't for that, I'd probably still be closed off and closed-minded to the fact of Star Trek Enterprise, because I've never been a fan. I'm still not terribly impressed, but I like it more now than I ever have before, as I've said in the past.
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my thumbs up. It's kind of short and sweet because it's not on a particular point, but I really like that I can just kind of watch. I watched The Royale the other night on streaming because I didn't really have anything else to do, and I was like, I haven't seen this in a while. Let's watch it. The Royale is not a good episode of TNG, but it's kind of it's nice to not have commercials. But it's also nice to not have like time strains. Like, I'm sitting down at 11:35. I'm already, halfway through this Star Trek episode. Like if it were on cable or something like that, like it used to be. It's nice to just sit down and be like, well, I'll just throw up an episode of Star Trek and just kind of pick it random. There it is. Or if you really want to see an episode, or if you really want an episode to watch, or if you want to podcast an entire discussion about a single episode, it's really good because you can watch it and rewatch it, rewatch it, and rewatch it.
Yeah, totally. That's really it's really cool that this stuff has come out the way that it has. I never seen the animated series until it was out on streaming. I don't think I'd ever go out and just buy that. I think that's why.
It's funny because as soon as it came out, I went out and bought it.
Sweet.
The original series DVDs and the animated series DVDs were the ones that I went out and was just like, yep, this is it. I think I bought the animated series the first week that it came out, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's definitely cool to have. Yeah, I don't know about Enterprise in general, but we could talk about Enterprise later. But, yeah, yeah, that is a good thing. That's a really good thing. There's no excuse not to get Trek now.
Right.
Which, I wonder...
Another good thing...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Netflix, they kind of have movies off and on, and they kind of substitute them in and out. I think it was 2 months, like maybe in November, they had Star Trek 4 and 5 on there, and now they have Generations and 6 on there. I recently rewatched 6. I haven't seen, because I don't own 6 for some reason. We've talked about this before, but I don't own The Undiscovered Country, but I was able to rewatch it because Netflix brought it back this month. So it's really cool. Like, I'm glad that they kind of have them flowing about there. It's helpful to me.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool they did that. So with all the availability that's on there, I wonder why people seem pretty upset over the fact that the new show is going to be over streaming as well.
I'm not upset that it's going to be like an online streaming service. I'm upset that it's going to be on a unknown or less popular streaming service.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about that.
Because in my mind now, so every month I pay for Netflix and Hulu. So now, if I want to watch Star Trek, I'm going to have to pay for a third streaming service that I probably am not going to use very much.
It's on the CBS one, huh?
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be on. So
watch Big
We'll
Bang
see.
Theory.
Yeah, and all 10 years. How long has that show been on? That show's been on for a really long time, I feel like.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe not 10. Maybe
I'm going to
more
write a letter. Oh, more like 8 or something. 7.
I was going to say like 5, but yeah, maybe like 8.
I'm going to write a letter to Chuck Lorre and just ask him if he knows how to actually end a sitcom, because it seems like all of his shows just last until no one watches them anymore.
I tell you, he's the Jewish version of Tyler Perry. That's bad. I shouldn't say that. People might like Tyler Perry. That's insulting to Tyler Perry. I apologize. Are you going to boycott the Oscars, Shaun?
No, I'm not going to boycott the Oscars. I don't go out and watch a whole lot of movies when they're in the theaters, so usually my Oscar or my, greatest movies of the year happen after the Oscars when they come out on video of some sort, on DVD, streaming, what have you, Blu-ray. So the idea that this is the second year in a row where there's been very few ethnic nominations, I'm just like, well, maybe there were very few ethnic movies, which is a problem with the industry, not a problem with the Academy.
Yeah, that's definitely what it is. And I wanted to see that Concussion movie too. That was pretty good.
That did look pretty good. And if Tyler Perry's complaining that he's not getting Oscars, well, just watch a Tyler Perry movie and you'll understand that he doesn't deserve Oscars, because those movies are awful.
They're pretty bad. Yeah, see, I wouldn't use the CBS streaming service for anything either. I'm not really into anything. I don't like Two Broke Girls. I think that show's a little crass.
We've talked about Two Broke Girls before and their horse.
Yeah, they're living with a horse. Like, what the heck? You just have a horse and you're broke? Horses are expensive, man. They take hay.
Especially, I'm sure very expensive in New York City.
Hay is like the natural world's version of oil. Like, instead of like pumping in oil into your car, you pump in hay into your ride that's a horse. That's the analogy I'm going for right there. But, that oil's getting cheaper, but hay's not getting cheaper, I hear. No, I don't know. What else is on that show? The Talk is on there, too, I think.
The Talk?
Yeah, The Talk. It's a talk show. It's kind of like The View, but it's The Talk. That one lady, Karen Osborne's on there.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, the reason why I said all that is that's why I won't get the CBS viewing service. It'll just be just for Trek.
Yeah. That'll be about all, yeah.
Yeah. It is good.
I can't... Yeah.
It's good that all that's there. It's good that all that's there. Well, okay, what did I choose? I chose something that's... I'm going to start a little project for myself here. And this is going to be part 1 of a series that I'm going to run every week that I have the thumbs down. So this is the first week that I'll do it, and then since we're going to be doing something special next week, we won't really be following our traditional thing. Then I won't do this for like 3 weeks, and then that'll be part 2. But my series, I'm going to do a series. This is going to be like 60 minutes right here. Dateline NBC. I'm going to do a series on something that I consider one of the biggest thumbs down, not just for Star Trek, but for science fiction as a whole, and that's Geek-chic. Geek-chic, to me, is probably as bad as Star Trek V in my book on the scale of badness. So today I wanted to start off talking about memorabilia, and I wanted to get your opinion on this because I thought about doing this for a while, doing this little serial on Geek-chic, and what actually got me into it was a piece of clickbait. And I was reading this article on Star Wars Star Wars actors that don't like Star Wars, and there was a section on there that quoted from Ewan McGregor that mentioned that Star Wars fans are parasites. And I thought I knew better. I was like, well, no, that doesn't... I'm sure he wouldn't really say that. So when I found the original interview that he did, what he was talking about was he was talking about fans that go to conventions and they get their autographs and they sell them. And I never realized the market for this. I never realized that there was a market to begin with until I went to my first Trek convention. And there was people actually standing in line for the autographs that were explicitly saying that they were getting the autograph to sell them. And, you know, they're either going to sell them on eBay or they're going to sell them right there at the convention. And there's booth after booth after booth that you go to where they're essentially autograph salesmen. And to me, and the reason why I chose this as a first one is because I don't think it's talked about enough in the whole geek-chic culture, the idea of autograph collecting. And let me just share my really quick experience, and then I definitely want to get your opinion on this, Shaun. I definitely want to hear what you want to say. Yeah. What's disheartening me about that? I have a couple of autographs, and in fact, I even had Brandon Braga's autograph. He signed my badge to the whole convention, and to me, like that meant a lot because it was something that I could like really, you know, hold on to and say, like I cared about, like I really care about what that guy did for Trek, and like. You just can't stand in front of a person for so many hours and get to tell them, somebody like that, and say like what they did for you. You know, it's impossible to do that at a convention. So like in the like 10 seconds that you are in front of them, and it is, you know, to get the autograph, it's like something really important that they're giving you of them. And you're acknowledging that, and you're really respecting that piece that they give to you. the flip side of that is this part of Geek-chic culture that is you have to collect memorabilia, and the worst part, I think, is this of the memorabilia part is the autograph part. And I saw things that just weren't. I'm just not talking about like what I got signed. You know, like I got a picture of Robert Picardo that was signed by him. Like that's you'll find that, but like then you'll find like cups, like toys, trading cards, comic books. I mean, you name it, and it's signed. Like action figure packages, anything and everything. And it just seemed commercialized. You commercialize the person. You don't take away anything of enjoyment if you're just going to sell that. And I would never, ever, ever sell Brandon Braga's signature, because that really means a lot to me. I mean, he means a lot to me. As much as I talked about Voyager last week, everybody should know, how much that guy means to me. And so, like, I just could not bring myself to do that, but people do it. And so I didn't really like that they were calling that, eventually I'll get to anti-intellectualism, but there's kind of a weird pushback in Geek-chic against trying to expose people. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fight behind the scenes with William Shatner and George Takei. This kind of like people like to see this drama and stuff like that. So when Ewan McGregor said that, I think they really tried to push the fact that he said he didn't really like that he called fans parasites. But on the deeper level, those people that are selling the autographs are parasites. But that's what I wanted to say about that. But I really want to get your opinion on that.
Well, okay, so first of all, I see what you're saying, and as a person that has some autographs from some of the Star Trek cast, first of all, I'd never think about selling them, and I've never thought about selling them. It was never about trying to make money off of them. So people that do that, I don't really understand, because the second part of what I'm getting to is why would you pay for that? Because I've never wanted to the converse of me never wanting to sell something like that is I never really want to buy something like that. If it were just a picture, if you just had a picture of Kate Mulgrew signed by Kate Mulgrew, or a picture of Captain Janeway signed by Kate Mulgrew, what value is that to me? I don't want to buy that. I could see some rarities being signed, but I want more of the creators to actually sign rarities rather than the stars. So when you talk about toys or comics, like particularly comics, if you had a rare Star Trek comic or an uncommon Star Trek comic or a trading card or something like that, I'd want somebody that came up with that trading card kind of set, or if it were a comic, the writer or the artist or the inker, somebody who actually worked on that comic book to sign it. If it was a comic book all about the Doctor and Robert Picardo signed it, that's kind of cool. I'm fine with that, because he's signing away his... not signing away, but he's signing on to his persona, which is fine, and I get, but to me, as a consumer, I would never want to buy that. I don't think it's that much more rare. I'd much rather have, writer X and illustrator A signature on a comic, or, the developer of a toy or the creator of a toy or something like that. Those, to me, would be more valuable. But even so, I don't understand why the idea of an autograph or a signature makes something that great. It's never something that I've really sought after. Even if you had something, if I had something, let me put it like this. If I had a original series DVD or like an original VHS or something that was signed by Shatner or Nimoy or any collection of the original crew, it would be of value to me, but it wouldn't be so much of value to me that I would care. Like, the value to me would be more that I was able to get it signed by them and like say, hi, like, will you sign this for me? Not that I have the object signed. That holds not so much value to me. It's more of a sentimental kind of thing to me. So I don't really get. I don't get the people that are buying it. I certainly don't get the people that are trying to sell autographs. Like, I don't understand who they're selling to, and I don't understand who their consumers are. I don't get the value in it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up comic books, because I actually have a comic book signed by Jonathan Frakes. And like you said, the story actually focuses on Jonathan Frakes, on William Riker, and it's like where he gets lost in this other dimension. But what makes that item so personal to me and so great is he actually read it, like, while I was there. And I was like, hey, will you sign this to me? And he flipped through it, and he was reading it. And he was laughing about it because, like, Riker at the end of this comic, he's, like, stuck in this other dimension, and it's like, will he survive? And Jonathan Frakes was reading it back like, will Riker survive? We don't know. And it was like it was so personal that now that I have that and, he signed it, like, I look at that and that's a memory. And so to me, like, that says more than the object itself just being signed, that I have that memory of him specifically doing that. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and I guess I was in utter shock that, I guess people, yeah, like you said, like, who are these people? Because just the commodification of these actors is just, I mean, that was shocking to me. It was seriously shocking. I was like, wow, I didn't know this existed on this level.
Right. So even with to further my point, with that Riker comic that you're talking about, that's a really cool story. It's really cool that you had him Jonathan Frakes sign that comic, and that makes sense to me on why you would have him sign that comic. But if you wanted to, sell that to me, I wouldn't give you very much money for it, because I don't. I mean, maybe in that case I'd give you a little bit, but it sounds like it means way more to you than it would ever mean to me. To me, it is literally a commodity. To you, it's actually something personal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a a wonderful point. And yeah, I mean, this transcends like a lot of objects too. Like, I was watching the State of the Union, and the president was walking out of the State of the Union. And, I mean, these are senators. Like, I mean, those are the people who are sitting in Congress, right? Senators and representatives. And they're, like, handing him their program of the State of the Union for him to sign as he's walking out. And I'm just like, really? Like, you do that? Like, that seems so weird. And then there was a guy that was, I guess he was a reporter or something, because he made the comment to the president, will you take a picture with me? And the president said, I don't do selfies, and just kept walking. And, the media was just like, oh, this guy got shafted and stuff. And to me, like that, like, I don't understand to me, it would mean 1,000 times more if you got to shake the guy's hand and said, good speech, Mr. President. And that was all you got to say. You didn't get an autograph or anything out of it. To me, that means more than you just, like, here's this program that I have. I mean, and the icing on the cake for that is just, like, you're a senator. Like, couldn't you just, like, meet him? Like, you'd see him randomly, I'm sure. Like, wouldn't you run into him anyway?
Yeah, in that situation, you're kind of coworkers. And to go on with your point, when I was at Comic-Con 2 years ago, I met Matt Groening, and I have a picture of me and Matt Groening. It's great. I think there's 2 pictures of me, and like I walked up to him, I shook his hand, handed my phone to somebody. They took a picture of us. I said, "Hey, Matt, I was a big Simpsons fan. Futurama is one of my favorite shows." That was that. He wasn't doing autographs or anything like that. I didn't ask for an autograph. It was really cool to just be right there, and it's really cool to have a picture of me right next to him.
Yeah. That is really cool. Yeah, and that would definitely, I mean, same thing, yeah. I can see, like, how much that would mean to you. And I love the guy, I mean, I like his work, but yeah, it's just like, why would you sell that then?
Mm-hmm. It's funny, I think this comes from an old episode. Well, it doesn't come from this, but This Week in Trek had done it a long time ago. But Patrick, this guy had, they were doing like a cell phone video of a guy proposing to his fiance, and the fiance said yes, and then I guess they turn around the camera and it's Patrick Stewart. He goes, "Engaged." You know? And that would be so much more than any autograph or anything. Just the fact that Patrick Stewart was like just a little bit part of your life or something like that. And I said this before. I think I even said this last week on the show. I've got George Takei's autobiography, and it's personalized to me. And at the time when it was personalized, I was young enough that I always appreciated it, but I appreciate it now more than I did 15 years ago or maybe even 20 years ago when I first got it. Because then I was like, oh, this is cool, blah, blah, blah. You know, Mr. Sulu, like, signed my book, blah, blah, blah. And now that I read it, I was like, oh, man, George Takei is such a cool dude. They took the time.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I have books from historians that are autographed. I mean, it's no great feel, you know. It's not as exciting as, say, a movie star, but I have Doris Kearns Goodwin signed my book when I met her, and I told her that Joe Alice was a better historian. She laughed and she said, "I like Joe Alice too." So I mean, that is just hilarious. I mean, I have no idea to the day why I did that, but I truly believe that. I'm not a big fan of her, but the fact that I got to meet her, that she came to CSU Pueblo, I would not pass up that opportunity at all. And then when she did the book signing, I was just like, oh my god, really, lady? Like, all right, sign this book.
That's pretty good. You know, that's something too, to just go off on this tangent too. I think book signings are a little more personal than anything else. I'd rather have a book signed by the author than I'd have anything else signed by the creator. I don't know why that is necessarily. Don't get me wrong, I would take a signed David Bowie album, but if it came down to it, I'd probably rather have a book signed by the author. That probably makes it a little bit more, or is a little more heartfelt to me.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. So, that's part 1 of Geek-chic. I'm going to continue this. There's a lot. I mean, I want to talk about Big Bang Theory, too. I'm going to leave that for a day. You know, I never realized how much Big Bang Theory references Star Trek, but there's a video on YouTube where it's almost an hour and a half long of nothing but Star Trek references. It's longer than an episode. It's like a 2-part episode, and they're just references in that show to tell you how redonkulous that is.
Yeah.
All right, Shaun, you got anything else? Yes. Got any more verdict? Man, I like your verdict a lot better. Mine's all depressing.
Mine was very simplistic, compact.
Yeah. Brevity.
I like your verdict, though, too, though. Your verdict created a conversation, which is always good.
Yeah, that is always good.
Always a little hesitant to go on to our next segment, just because the next segment is going to be Star Trek Enterprise.
All right, let's Enterprise and engage into the world of boring.
Oh.
Warp drive isn't going to do us much good with this knife stuck in our belly.
His brain is gone.
Worf, you're a romantic.
All right, so for Talk Trek this week, we are talking the third, well, it's not the third, really, it's the second episode of Enterprise, and it's called Fight or Flight, the common idiomatic phrase, as people say. This aired on October 3rd, 2001, so not too far off of after the first pilot episode, because the pilot episode got actually pushed back a little bit in due part to 9/11. But this episode is not, it's not bad, it's just boring. But it's interesting because I don't know if you thought the same thing I did, Shaun. To me, this episode was the exact same as the second episode of the original series, the second episode of DS9, and the second episode of Voyager in terms of what it was trying to do with characters. However, I don't think it succeeded anywhere near to the level of Parallax, and it certainly did not succeed anywhere near to the Carbonite maneuver.
Okay, I could see what you're saying. I think this suffered first. Okay, so I do agree with what you're saying, but I think this focused mostly on Hoshi more so than anybody else. You get a little bit of other stuff in there, like little threads, but I think in the DS9, A Man Alone, that episode, they went a little bit too far, or they try to do too many character development little arcs. This one did too few. Somehow Voyager got it right. Corbomite got it right. However, Corbomite kind of also, what was his name? Was it Lieutenant Riley and Corbomite? Yeah. We never see him again, so it wasn't like it was very self-contained in Corbomite.
That's true. I mean, you're absolutely right. Hoshi did have a Torres moment where Torres kind of solves it. She's the hero for the day, and Hoshi does the same thing where she's the hero for the day. Yeah, that's about the extent of it. This episode, though, I do have to say, is boring on the level that it doesn't have. It has an A plot. Okay, what would you call the A plot? Because I was kind of confused on this, because I know there's an A plot and a B plot, and you can kind of go either way on whatever one you want it to be, because either it's Hoshi not really fitting in, and actually we could throw in a C, and it can go either way on there. The B could be Archer wants to explore more, and T'Pol doesn't really want to, and the ship's kind of not top of the line kind of yet, so here's this not kind of top of the line ship that's being pushed as far as she can possibly be pushed. And then the third thing you have, the C line storyline, is you have the aliens, Axanars, which is kind of cool that it actually takes place above Axanar. You have the Axanars, but that you don't really have one predominant story. It's like they're all happening on the same level. Do you get that? Did you feel that too?
Yeah, no, I do get that, and it's kind of stinks of A Man Alone, where there's just things going on, but you don't. They're not enticing or enthralling enough to actually care about. Because that's kind of the way I felt in A Man Alone. I felt like this is a little bit more well done than A Man Alone, but it's in the similar stride where, again, there aren't as many threads going through that they want you to care about, but none of them are all that done, or none of them are done so well that you really actually do want to pay attention to it, I don't think. One big problem that I have with this too, just as we're getting started with all this, is the slug is a metaphor for the episode, and I hate that.
Your pun is hilarious. Sluggish opening, sluggish ending.
Yeah, the clips I gathered are all centered around Hoshi, because I didn't know what else to get, because I watched this episode, and then so in order to do this show, just so we know, and Chris kind of knows this, but in order to do this podcast that Chris and I do, when we watch an episode, how I prepare is I'll sit down with an episode and say, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch this episode. I'm going to really try to pay attention to it all the way through, and kind of gather some notes and things that I'm like, well, what happened there and what's going on here? Did you see that? And then I'll walk away from the episode and I'll try not to think about it for a little while. And then a day or two later, I'll sit down and say, well, we need to get some clips for the episode so we can listen to. So I'll sit down, and when I get the clips, I'll not necessarily rewatch the entire episode, because I will fast forward or skip ahead or whatever you want to call it through some parts. And I'm just like, well, I don't care about that or anything like that. So, but I do what I end up recording is huge usually, and then gets trimmed down quite a bit to the clips that you hear. And this episode, I never knew where to start recording and never knew where to stop and never knew what scene I wanted to get. And it was complicated. It was hard. It was hard to gather clips for me on this. I didn't know what I wanted to listen to or what I thought we should listen to and what we'd want to talk about. And, luckily with Voyager, you can just talk about Voyager for a while. So I'm almost thinking like with Voyager, we could just almost not have clips and we could just go the whole episode just talking about it and it'd be fine. And clips would just be a little supplement. But on these slower episodes or these episodes that we don't like as much or that are just generally not as good, which happen probably in Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, we kind of need clips to kind of push us along, I think. And so I'm always trying to figure something that'll help us, further the conversation.
And I have to tell everybody out there, like, Shaun did an amazing job with this episode. Like, I did not record a single thing. Like, I really dicked out on this episode, to use not a very good phrase. I couldn't do it. Like, I just couldn't do it. With Voyager, I do hold back because, quite honestly, like, I would just put the whole damn episode in there. We would just listen to it. And I could just talk about it so much that, I completely agree with what you said. But with this, to me, the episode is just, there wasn't a strong scene to even have, to even be able to pull out. And that's in anything. Like you can have the whole Hoshi talk. Like, my God, I did not think it was going to go that long, where it was like Utaguta solo for like, a minute. And it was just like, really?
And I'm glad that you brought that up. So at one point in time, I had the whole Hoshi talks to the alien, the Axanar, for... I had that entire conversation as a clip, and then I was watching it as I recorded it, and then I played the recording back, and I said, well, this is ridiculous for a podcast. What are we gonna? We're just gonna listen to gibberish for literally a minute and then talk about it. And I was like, there's no way that we can get away with that. Like, no way that we can get away with that.
No.
And I just realized that all is predicated on visuals. It is predicated only on visuals. It's predicated on Hoshi's reactions and the aliens' reactions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is not the best way to have a TV show, I don't think.
And there was too much the visuals in there. It's so hard to explain, because it seemed like if you don't have a visual, it's very hard to know what's like going on. And like in the shuttlecraft, that has to be to have to describe like the way that the shuttlecraft works on the Enterprise, like before you could even say like this is what the scene's going to be, like they're going up in the shuttlecraft, because it's not like a regular shuttlecraft. It's like this weird kind of hook thing that comes down and connects to the shuttlecraft and then like brings it up. And it's just like, it's just weird. Like, that's weird, but like that's what I mean. Like, every single scene is like so dense as far as like visual effects that it's so hard just to have a lot of scenes without not having the visual. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, I do. I understand.
And then like the whole alien, like the aliens show up and they're having the battle with the ships. Look pretty cool. I thought those ships, the Axanar ship looks pretty sweet.
Right.
No, not the Axanar. It was the other guys. No, the Axanar is just like a giant tube.
Yeah, I don't even know what they are.
I don't think they're
do you
called
know what that other?
I don't think they're called anything, actually. Unknown species.
They're not.
Yeah, the other unknown species. That ship looked really sweet. And in fact, when I saw that ship, I was just like, my gosh, that'd look pretty sweet in Star Trek Online as a ship. But yeah, I mean, that's like, I was actually kind of disappointed in the Axanar ship, to be honest, because it was just kind of like a tube.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as far as it's kind of interesting that Brandon Braga worked on this episode. He didn't work on it alone, though. He worked on it with Michael Piller. But this episode, to me, stands in stark contrast to all the accolades that I gave him last week. It's kind of like he went backwards to me, because it's the same situation where has practically a new cast. They're not really like into their roles 100% because they haven't been doing it for months and months and months and years, and you give them a complex script and you just say, here's this complex script and do it, and you have the actors to be able to rise to the occasion and do it. When it comes to Enterprise, it just kind of seems like he didn't challenge them. Although I do have to say, the actress that played Hoshi, I mean, she did probably the best acting job out of anybody. But in terms of the script and the storyline, it's definitely not a good Braga script at all.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of those things I'll compare this to Star Wars Episode 1. I feel like was just a hard thing for the actors to get through, because I think Ewan McGregor is a good actor. I think Liam Neeson's a good actor. Hell, I think Sam Jackson's a pretty good actor. But when they're in green screen just reacting to, a stick on a ball or a ball on a stick or something like that, I'm sure any actor would have a hard time with that, especially with the weird lines that they had. I think because of Star Wars, I thought Natalie Portman was not a great actress for the longest time. Then I saw Black Swan. I go, oh my, who is this? Like, what is she doing? This is great. And to get off on a tangent about green screen, I didn't mean to do that. But the point that I'm getting to is Linda Park, who plays Hoshi. I think she really sells that. And so going back to that whole me talking about, I gathered a clip where they're just speaking an alien language, which basically ultimates to gibberish back and forth. The only reason that scene works is because she's actually reacting in a good way, in a way that you can actually relate to. So what's going on with her face and body mannerisms actually sells it. That's the only thing that sells it.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, it does. It's just too bad that the slug is a metaphor for what she's going through. Why that? Like, why did he have to choose a slug? I thought
Star Trek
is
stupid. Better than that.
Yeah, it is way better. And like the slugs dying and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like the Dark Crystal is out of the world, and the sexies want it back, kind of thing. And so, and it just so happens that Axanar has, the perfect atmosphere and stuff. But it just seems so contrived for that to be the metaphor of what she was going through. I was like, God, they could have done better.
How many episodes of Star Trek can you think of that do that, though, where the metaphor is so overtly displayed throughout the episode? Because I
can't think of one off the top.
I can't either. And I'm not saying that there might not be others that exist, but this is really the first one that I've seen and can point to.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a 7 of 9 story, but like it doesn't. She's never really done anything like that. Like for her metaphor, it would just be a slug. Like that's like, like an alien. Like they've always used the metaphor of like, her connecting with Torres on the sense of like, not being. They don't know where they belong, kind of thing. But that's like a character level that you have to get to. Like Taurus has to recognize it, 7 of 9 has to recognize it, and they have to recognize it in each other. That's a really big thing in character development. That's a huge hurdle. When you're dealing with a slug, it's just kind of like it's so one-dimensional because the slug can't fill that. Well, I guess so, because the counter argument to that is, well, the slug's dying. Being confined.
It's just, if I feel like every episode that we don't like, I get at a loss for words, and this is one of those points. The middle scene, I'm going to save the middle scene because I actually have that clip, so I'm not even going to worry about it till we get there. I don't know why we have to. From the beginning, we see it. We see that the slug's at the beginning, and we see it at the end, and we see it in the middle. And at every point, it's always kind of about Hoshi. I guess in the beginning part, you don't quite understand that it's about her. And if you don't have any other kind of opening remarks, I'm going to start with the clip.
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right, let's do that.
I didn't realize you spoke slug.
I wish I did. She doesn't look any better, does she?
She? We haven't been able to determine its gender, if it has one.
I should have left her where I found her.
Nonsense. You're on a mission of exploration. There's something to be learned from every life form.
She wasn't meant to be in this environment.
I promise to do my best to keep it alive.
It's gonna make you all better?
Actually, I was thinking more about my Pyrithian bat. He won't eat anything once it's dead.
We've routed some more power to sickbay. Let me know if it's enough.
This should do fine.
How's Sluggo?
Dr. Fox thinks this argon lamp should help. But she's barely moved all day.
We've been out here for 2 weeks, and the only first contact we've made is with a dying worm.
Oh, okay. I gotta say this real quick, and then I'll let you say something. Now that I have it in my head, I gotta say it. So, in terms of exploration of what excites scientists, this is so striking to me because, granted, it's a slug, and we can just look at it just a slug as her pet. When scientists talk about exploration now, and it's like they talk about like microbes and stuff like that, and that's extraterrestrial life as we know it. Like if you find microbes in water on Mars or something, that's like a huge thing. Mm-hmm. And it just, like, to me, they shouldn't have even had the slug to begin with, because then that brings up my argument that's, isn't any find an interesting find when you want to be an explorer?
Right. And I'll go off of that. And actually, I did want to talk a little bit about this. You elated it a little differently than I did, but Dr. Phlox is the one that's got the Star Trek in him at this point, because he says something along the lines, there's something to be learned from every species. So he's almost excited that there's a new species, in the sickbay with the slug. So it's not whether it lives or dies. He's just he knows that there's something that he can get from that, whether it be good or bad, or if it lives or dies. And to me, that was just like, well, that's actually, that almost sounds like a Star Trek kind of theme to me. But of course, Dr. Phlox has to say it.
Yeah, he's certainly the best character.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does have to say it, though. I mean, you're right. I mean, But we're on the same plane there. I don't get that. I don't get that at all.
Yeah, this also sets up the. I think the only reason they had Trip come in to say that he got engineering was able to get extra power to sick bay is to show that, and maybe this is where you were going originally with maybe the C plot is that Trip is getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the setup for Trip getting bored. It's like, we've been out here for weeks and all we found was a slug, and he's like, ugh. Which,
yeah, and to keep his mind, I never liked the whole idea. It was always fine when because they've had a couple of episodes where like Worf had to like test the phasers and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like, why in, like the 24th century, like even that far ahead, like forget the 22nd century where this is happening. Like, I don't know why they just can't do that through like a computer recalibration or something like that they have to actually like, get on the Tiger game and play the Enterprise D versus the asteroids. But like to give him that kind of busy work.
Yeah, just to be fair, like as we get into this of Trip being bored and they're not finding anything of interest as they're exploring the stars, I never got the impression that Kirk or Picard or their respective enterprises were finding something every day. I got the impression that they were exploring, and the episode that we watched was the day that they happened to find something.
Yeah.
And I'll put it like this. Yeah, Kirk and the original Enterprise are out there for 5 years. We've got all of, maybe 70 hours of their adventures or something like that, So I always, and this is kind of that suspension of disbelief with TV, you have to presume that they live lives and they go to the bathroom, they sleep, and they eat, and there has to be all of this downtime that happens in there. You just happen to see the exciting parts of it.
Yeah. Well, and T'Pol says, she mentions it's something in the dialogue, but I'll just use what I know. There's only so many planets within habitable zones across, the whole entire universe that we know of. And there's only so many of those that can support life because, it might be like a gas giant or something that's within the habitable zone or not. And so the point is, like, life by itself, by the very definition of how the universe works, is very rare. And so when you transfer that into a television show, like, what are you expecting? What are you expecting, Trip, and what are you expecting Hoshi? Because she left the university, the Brazilian university that she was a teacher at. So It was just kind of like, what were you guys? You guys weren't going to have. To me, like, this is what I'm trying to. This is really what I'm trying to say, is like, were they expecting it to be like, that kind of television show where they thought about it? I guess I'm making the same point that you are. I just went about the wrong. I went in a circle, but yeah. I definitely know what you're saying, because that's my biggest, like, what were they expecting? Because then it just becomes like a whole TV show of nothing but them complaining.
The Gemini missions and the Apollo missions, I don't think anybody ever expected they were going to see life or anything like that, but you hear those astronauts talk and they were just so excited that they did it. And this would be in that similar kind of vein. These are astronauts going further than any Earth human, any Terran has gone before. They should be excited that they're just doing it and that they have the chance to get back and live and talk about it.
Yeah.
I feel like that alone would drive them.
And it seems so antithetical to what the show is to me, because the whole opening sequence is, it's been a long road, showing the journey of what it takes to do space travel. So you would expect that this show would be filled with the wonderment that we see our scientists filled with today, and the astronauts and people on that that verge of scientific discovery. But like from
No.
the get-go, like from the very first show, it's like in the first episode, it was like nothing but complaint about the people that you make first contact with that brought you out here. You do nothing but complain about the Vulcans. And in the second episode, it's like complain about the fact that you've come across nothing of consequence.
Right.
And it's just
Which I don't think would happen. I don't think people would react like that.
No, me neither. Me neither. The only sane one in this whole episode is really T'Pol. Because, you know, she sees... well, I mean, the Vulcans, I guess, aren't explorers, which kind of seemed weird to me. But she really painted them as kind of like, we don't stop at every single irrelevant planet.
Right. They don't explore when they feel like they need to explore, which I guess kind of makes sense, but... why would they even go out into space beyond their own solar system?
Yeah, then you have to ask
Personally.
them, why? What? Yeah, why are you out here? I mean, the only people then that makes sense, the Klingons, because they're out to conquer. I mean,
right.
That mutes the whole purpose of Star Trek.
It's just so weird watching Enterprise with T'Pol and then thinking the next Vulcan that we're really going to see is going to be Spock, and Spock is so completely different from T'Pol.
Yeah,
because he's not, you know, when he's in command, he's a little bit of a not a curmudgeon. That's not the right word, but you know, he's very stiff and very proper, and you get that from T'Pol. But he's not. He doesn't countermand every thing Kirk does. There's a respective chain of command, and maybe it's because he's in Starfleet and T'Pol's not. I don't understand. Maybe that's the difference, but I feel like T'Pol's defiant most of the time, at least in these beginning episodes.
Well, yeah, man, I think that's actually a really good analysis.
Yeah,
because as far as I would look at them, as far as I was thinking about them, I like your analysis better, because as far as I was thinking about them was in terms of like Spock seeing the world through a type of curiousness, and this is regardless of everybody else. It's just him being intrinsic and how he feels about the world around him. Like when he sees Balok's ship and you know, like that sense of wonder, like you're in mortal danger, dude. You're gonna, you know, this is a bad situation. But it's like for T'Pol, like she's not that level of fascinated where when, you know, the ship's in danger or something, she's just not like, you know, where they were not able, like, the sensors to penetrate the hull or something like that, or, you know, the sensors aren't working quite right. In this episode, T'Pol's just kind of like, you guys need to hurry back to the ship right away, we're gonna die. It's just kind of like, wow, like, yeah, I could really see Spock just, like, being like, our sensors can't do that? And, you know, just, like, be curious about the ship and stuff like that.
right.
That's the only way that I could describe it, that I don't really like how they're different.
Mm-hmm.
And Tuvok's like Spock too. Like, there's a lot of episodes where Tuvok mentions being fascinated about, you know, the dire situation that they're in, and like Captain Janeway was like, seriously, dude, like we're about ready to like blow up right now. And I like that. I like that cool collectedness, like that Spock has. Maybe Leonard Nimoy might have taken it too far with Spock in some regards, but like the flip side is what you get with T'Pol.
T'Pol's kind of like a Ron Paul. She just does, you know, only go there if they ask us to go there, and even then, maybe not. And it's really none of our business. We're not even going to turn on our sensors because maybe that might offend them. Very isolationist. Very, very. And I never got that from the Vulcans before.
No, why'd they stop at the backwater planet of Earth anyway, then?
Right?
Makes no sense. It's like they completely forgot about First Contact.
Right, yeah. I don't get it.
I've always wondered what... You know what I'm curious about? I would love to hear this, to be honest, at conventions that you never hear, because for one, you always get people that ask stupid questions of the writers and directors and stars. The dumbest possible questions ever. So you never get to hear anything that's like of substance. But I'm really curious, like, what, just as like a blanket question, what Brandon Braga considers apocryphal. And what does apocryphy mean to him in the context of writing Star Trek? And you know, if I'd have to follow it up, I would say, because to me, it would seem that you would consider like Star Trek First Contact to be apocryphal, at least the Vulcans in that, or that you would consider character attributes to be apocryphal. That's an interesting question, you know, not kind of like, how did you get here? Did you beam here today, you know, to Las Vegas from your spaceship?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. You know, some people ask questions that are great, and then other people ask questions that are just not okay, not all there. Just sometimes they ask like actors about stuff that they voice acted in, like storylines that they voice acted in. It's like, I don't know, I voice acted in that, I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, the Brawny thing. Like, why would you waste a question on John Delancey to ask about the Brawnies as Star Trek mentioned? I'll never forget. There was like a collective sigh when somebody said that. They were like, oh. It's like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in a lot of that, because it seems that, and maybe it's not Braga. I mean, I pit a lot on him because he wrote this, but it could be the director too. I mean, the interesting thing about Star Trek is, I mean, I'm not going to say like every episode, because like, you know, there's some directors that have done multiple episodes across multiple series, but it's kind of fair to say every week when you watch a show on Star Trek, you get a different director. It's kind of fair to say that. It's not always going to be the case, and that makes it kind of unique. However, it also makes it kind of problematic in the sense of continuity. Or maybe that particular director didn't think that the way that Leonard Nimoy was directed was done very well, so he thinks Vulcan should be like a different way. I mean, who knows? I mean, that's kind of where I'm going. Like, that would be an interesting thing to find out.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure there are some of those kind of nuances that are in directing and acting style where the Vulcans, like a Nimoy kind of Vulcan, is more curious, as to where a T'Pol Vulcan is more cautious and defensive, and you can probably make an argument for both. So there might be a little bit of give and take there, but it's so extreme in this case. I feel like that some of it has to do with the writing and the character development, or the character layout too. So yeah, it's probably the fault. It's probably the fault of everybody, honestly.
And do you think, because you have this scene, Wrong Side of the Ships, that she goes and talks to Archer, and I was thinking this just now too. Archer seems so out of place to me in this episode. Archer seems out of place in Star Trek in general to me, as I don't really know how to place him. As far as, like, you can look at okay, here's a good way of putting it that I'm thinking it in my head. Like, okay, when you look at Picard, you know he's a diplomat. When you look at Captain Kirk, you know, he's like a hot shot. When you look at somebody like Janeway, she's just insane. When you look at Cisco, he's more of like, I guess prophet would be a good way to describe him. I mean, literal sense, but also in the sense of leading people, as being a good leader. Archer, to me, I don't know, but you know, well, with Janeway, I shouldn't say crazy. I mean, she's like the shepherd. She's like the shepherd.
Yeah.
With Archer, I have no idea what to pin him as.
Yeah, I don't really know either, because and this episode actually amplifies that a little bit, because they leave the ship, the little ship. So they find the derelict ship. They go on the derelict ship. They find that species upside down and with tubes from them, and then they leave. And then Archer gets mad that he left and goes back. So he as a character is just kind of confused. They wrote him that way. Yes.
Too indecisive.
Right.
I mean, that was a great thing about Captain Picard. I mean, he would never second guess himself. I don't ever remember him second guessing himself.
No, same thing with Kirk, I think. Like, they just kind of made a decision they would stick with it and figured they were right.
Yeah. And, the fact that they go back, I mean, puts them in greater harm.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But before we get too far into it, I'm going to draw us back into a clip. So we were talking about T'Pol being kind of defiant and stuff like that. And because I do want to talk more about this Archer thing, but we'll go through the episode a little bit more linear, I guess. Anyway, so T'Pol or Archer, we find Archer on the ground looking for a sound, which you do hear the sound. That plot is actually never resolved. Like, am I correct? You never actually figure out what the hell Archer heard in his quarters, right?
No, I thought it was just like a chair or something, maybe a loose bolt.
See, now I'm wondering, like, do we find out in a later episode what he's hearing? Is there something going on underneath his quarters that he's supposed to be hearing that we just don't see in this episode yet? Because they make a point of it and then it just goes away.
It'd be cool if that was like if that was like a thing in the show. I don't know Star Trek Enterprise enough to know, but that would be sweet. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I know what it is. It's Llewellyn Moss on the other side of the vent with the money.
That's a good way to make it go off the rails real quick.
Thanks.
Anyway, here's a clip while we compose ourselves.
Took tells me that Sluggo's not faring too well.
No, sir. But the doctor's doing the best he can. Sir, my quarters are on E-deck, starboard section 5.
Yes?
The stars are going the wrong way, sir.
Wrong way?
On both my training tours, I had portside quarters. I'm having trouble sleeping.
Because you're on the wrong side?
Wrong side of the ship, yes, sir. I spoke with Ensign Porter. He said he'd be willing to switch with your permission.
You got it. Can't have my comm officer falling asleep on the bridge.
Appreciate it, Captain.
Is there something else, Hoshi?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, so the beginning of before that clip actually happens, Archer and T'Pol are talking. T'Pol's being kind of mean about how you guys don't really have to explore, you don't have to find anything. I don't understand why you guys are looking for stuff. Just calm down. Hoshi comes in. We see that. So this is kind of another little, again, I think not that great, where Hoshi's uncomfortable, but you don't know why she's uncomfortable. And part of it is just being on a starship and being on the wrong side of the starship. So stars feel like they're going in the opposite direction. But Archer's being very accommodating, I think. He gives her no guff about it whatsoever. It's just like, yeah, if you want to switch quarters and it's okay with this ensign, switch quarters. Why do I care? Like, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, did you get the sense that, like, Starfleet at this point wasn't, maybe that's the point of the show, wasn't very good at vetting people, or wasn't very like Starfleet's more of like a okay. So, say you want to go like into the Air Force. Like, not everybody goes to the Air Force Academy, right? You know, that's like a specialized school that you can go through, and then you know you come out like an officer. So, like Starfleet Academy is like kind of like the same way, where not everybody goes through Starfleet Academy, but that you can essentially just be a commissioned officer. Kind of like Chief O'Brien.
Right.
Is.
Yeah.
So like
Chief O'Brien, proves that not everybody's an officer. He's the only one that proves that. But
right. So like, do you get the sense that like Starfleet at this time is just kind of like full of like Chief O'Briens? Like that seems a little weird, don't you think?
Well, it could be a little bit because you'd have to assume, and they play this up in Broken Bow, that everybody, at least all the senior crew people on the Enterprise, are there for kind of a reason. So Archer's dad was working on a warp ship. Archer knows about warp ships. Trip's a great engineer. Hoshi gets more or less enlisted, although I guess she enlisted herself in Starfleet, but she gets pulled on by Archer because she's so good at linguistics, and they would obviously need a linguist on a ship like that. Mayweather is there because he's a good pilot, because he grew up in space, because his parents flew around. They didn't really explore him very well. But you obviously get the sense that he's been in space quite a bit. The Doctor is the inner species exchange kind of thing. The one that I don't get quite, and I know they explain him later, is Malcolm. The tactical officer.
Yeah.
Which there's a little plot with him and the targeting computers that we haven't talked about, but there's not a whole lot to say about him. But
yeah.
So you did get kind of the sense that they're supposed to be really good at what they're doing, and that's why they're out there.
Yeah.
I wish they had made a little bit more of a point, or tried a little bit harder to make it. The first astronauts outside of the atmosphere were really good, like jet pilots and flyers, and they're the ones that got to go up in space. So they figured that translated. So there had, in my opinion, for this NX ship, they should have tried to make that kind of, Archer was a really good, some sort of whatever, like close range Earth space pilot. So that's why he gets the captain, the Enterprise. Or Trip was really good at running engines on a close range ship, and that's why he gets to be the chief engineer of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that. If you're going to do an origin story and you're going to try to make it relatively close to our time, they should have drawn a little bit more parallels to the astronauts of our time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always bugged me.
So they're bridging a gap, and they don't. In my mind, I don't know if Enterprise set out to do this, but Enterprise, in my mind, always wants to try to bridge the gap in between our reality and the Star Trek reality, and it does a bad job on both ends. To me, it's like building a bridge from the center to both banks, rather than building the bridge from one bank to another.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just start out there.
So there's this. I gotta read you this review really quick.
Go on.
Because this really strikes me. I mean, we're not even that really far in. But this is a critic. I don't know if you've ever heard of this critic's name. His name is Bobby Bryant. This television critic named this among the 4 best episodes of the season. Bryant cited the Enterprise crew response to the discovery. This is the scene that we're coming out with, why I wanted to mention this. Bryant cited the Enterprise crew's response to the discovery of a slaughtered alien crew initially feeling as one of the most honest reactions in Star Trek history. Did you really get that?
No, I didn't.
That seems so weird that, like, this guy thought it was one of the, quote, most honest reactions in Star Trek history. So anyway, back on the bridge to Paul. I like the Axonars. I think they look kind of cool, actually. But
I do too, actually.
She's the one that picks up the Axonars. And the Enterprise moves in to investigate. But I do like the whole fact that I won't go as far as this guy, Bobby Bryant, and say it's really cool. But, I mean, it is pretty cool that this takes place by Axonar, which... lawsuits.
But, you know, what's neat is the actual people that, you know, could operate within the copyright. We're trying to throw something back to the original series to kind of all tie it together a little bit.
Yeah, I respect that. I respect that.
Here's a fun little, like, lighthearted scene about Trip being annoyed that they don't get to go anywhere, but he sits down with Dr. Phlox, and me and you both like Dr. Phlox. This is kind of why I captured this, just because Phlox is really entertaining. So,
Sluggo any better?
I'm afraid not. Try the potatoes. They're delicious.
Pre-sequence protein.
Yes, the flavors are remarkable. On my home world, people would never think of speaking during a meal. It's considered a waste of time. It's taken me a while, but I've grown quite attached to it.
Wasting time seems to be all we've been doing. Starting to get a little antsy.
Antsy?
Restless. We've been on the move for 2 weeks and haven't seen a damn thing.
Every moment's been an adventure for me. Humans are so unpredictable. Have you ever seen the quantities of food crewman Neymar consumes?
Not really.
Have you smelled Ensign Socorro after she exercises? She gives off a fragrance not unlike the adrenal gland of a Nausicaan. And crewman Bennett and Tatum over there, do you see them? If I'm not mistaken, they are preparing to mate. Do you think they might let me watch?
It's good to see you're enjoying yourself.
So, one thing about that scene, the crewman that it shows after he says it looks like they're getting ready to mate. Those two crew people are staring off into the distance and not like paying attention to each other at all. But they are sitting next to each other. Phlox is great. I like the way it's Billingsley, right, that plays Phlox.
Yeah.
He does a great job. He's delightful. He reminds me, like, I wish that Neelix was a better character, because I feel like Ethan Phillips could have done something like Phlox had done if they just made him a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. And like, Phlox has the potential at any second to like really go over the top, but he doesn't. And they know how to write for him is the thing too. Mm-hmm. Like, not just in this scene, but the fact that he pulls the Scooby-Doo out of his hat, and the Scooby-Doo moment of this Star Trek episode where we find out why they're dead on that ship. But like, he's the, like, you know, the crux of that whole discovery. But he's not there. Like, it's not him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a Hoshi story. Yeah. It's a completely 100% Hoshi story and whatever she's going through. But like, his moments where he does show up are just like, every moment is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely a good character. Whereas like Neelix, like, it's just too much. It's way too much. Like, even
Neelix is a little overdone. He's a little bit too on the. In my mind, they're similar because they're supposed to. Well, at least early on, they both provide that comic relief and that very much alien persona.
Mm-hmm.
But for Neelix, well, you see Neelix in the bath in Caretaker, and that's ridiculous right there. Like, at least Phlox kind of has some. I guess Phlox is the self-respectful version of Neelix, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I can't really add much more to that. So moving on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna. Well, as you're moving on, I was gonna go off on a tangent and ask if you ever watched A Night in Sick Bay.
No.
That episode. Okay.
That's an Enterprise.
You
episode?
can imagine. It is an Enterprise episode. I think it happens in season 2, maybe season 3. Maybe check it out, and if you watch it, we'll talk about it. It's what happens. I'll give you the quick plot. I think Hoshi, T'Pol, Archer, and Porthos go down on a planet, and Porthos comes back up, and they're in the decontamination room, and Porthos has something in him. So Porthos has to hang out in sickbay. So Archer hangs out in sickbay with him. So basically, Archer is hanging out with his sick dog, and Dr. Phlox just is, being Dr. Phlox in sickbay the entire night. I think it's a good episode. It's actually well regarded in the as an Enterprise episode, but there's some people that don't like it. Wow. I think it's good though.
I have to check that out.
Yeah.
Damn dog. Yeah, that sounds hilarious. Is it funny, or is it pretty surreal?
It's not. No, it's not like really. Well, parts of it are really funny. There's some Dr. Phlox parts that are just like, oh, what's he doing? But it's kind of sweet with Archer and his dog, but it's also just funny because Archer will try to sleep, then Phlox will wake him up. Not on purpose. Phlox will just be doing whatever he's doing, and Archer will come out of his little sickbay bed and wonder what's going on. The worst part of that episode to me is that usually the dog's in kind of like an incubator chamber like Porthos, but it looks obviously like a stuffed dog. So it's not the real beagle in a chamber. Like, they use just some dummy like dog, and it just looks like a stuffed animal most of the time. You're just like, that's my biggest problem with the episode, is that they didn't put a whole lot of effort into making the stuffed animal look real. But it's good. You should check it out because you actually like Phlox, and from these 2 episodes of Enterprise that we've done and talking about Phlox, you should check it out because it's totally, like I said, I can't remember. It's definitely not first and fourth season. It's in number 2 or number 3. I can't remember which one though.
Yeah. He's the best part. This whole series, to me, I haven't watched much of Enterprise, but it's like every time I think that I just watched a really good episode and then mull over it, I just like, no, it's not very good. So then each time I go to the next episode, I just keep lowering my standards and lowering my standards. You would expect that to happen to DS9, but I've pretty much seen enough DS9 to just have 0 standards. So
yeah, I know enough.
Each time I watch Enterprise, I do get like a little bit disappointed. Like, I was a little disappointed in this episode. I thought it would. I expected more because so much. A for effort. Seriously, because when you look at the potential of what happened to the last episode we reviewed, like that's the potential that this episode could have been, to go in that terms of like what it was trying to accomplish with Hoshi's character. But then it just falls flat because you have all this like fluff. Like, really, the whole episode, other than her, is just fluff.
Right.
I mean, this whole thing is fluff. I like the next part where we get where they get to the Axanar ship. Like, that whole thing is just in there as a mulligan for her to have to do that thing at the end where she talks to them.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely it. I agree. It's just it's very predictable, and it just goes along a path almost. It's almost like a snake eating itself. I feel like you have to go to this part to get to this part, but you're going to go to this part because you need to get to this ending. There's no surprises in there. There's no twists or turns. It's just from the beginning you can almost see exactly where it's going.
Yeah. So where does your next clip take place?
Well, okay, so this is right before they go to the ship, and this is I named it Hoshi in the room too, but it's Hoshi back in Archer's room, and I think this is the one where she's talking about her 0G sickness.
Come in. Ensign.
Sorry to bother you, sir.
It's not a problem. Cheese?
No, thank you.
Everything work out all right?
Sir?
With the swapping quarters?
Yes, it's fine. Thank you. I was thinking, Captain, I might be a lot more helpful to you if I stay here and keep an open comm link. That way I'll have immediate access to the linguistic database.
Can't you tie your universal translator into the database through the comm?
It's not the same. The lag time is tripled.
Well, I'd rather wait a few seconds if it means having you on site. For all we know, the UT won't work. You'll be our only backup. Anyway, it should be exciting. Half the crew would give their eye teeth to be going over there. What's wrong?
The environmental suits, they make me a little claustrophobic.
Claustrophobic. And you took a job on a spaceship.
You talked me into it, remember?
I don't recall reading about any problems during your 0G training.
Well, I bit my lip and got through it.
Well, you're going to have to bite your lip again. I need you over there.
Yes, sir.
What is it, Hoshi? Is something else wrong?
No, I'd better get back to the launch bay.
Hang on, I'll come with you. That's the last time, Porthos.
So, I got that because that is the beginning part of Linda Park kind of acting, doing a good job acting, I should say. You get the sense that she really doesn't want to be there, and even though I like the line of when Archer says, well, you took a job on a starship, and she's like, you convinced me, which, you know, we saw that scene in the first episode in Broken Bow,
Yeah.
where he did literally convince her. So I do, she does sell it well.
Yeah, as she says, I was Jonathan Archer's first choice for this mission. Every inhabited world we come to is going to be filled with language. He needs me here. So yeah, I mean, there's a self-fulfilling thing there. Puppy Woppy!
Yeah, the Puppy Woppy.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. What were you saying at... I can't remember what episode it was where like they couldn't scan for biosigns. I want to say it was like in like DS9 or something, but like here in this episode they do.
That was last week. We were talking about parallax when they're trying to decide on which Voyager to go to, and it's just like, you know, take the shuttle, scan which Voyager doesn't have the half Klingon on it, and that's the Voyager that you want to go to.
Yeah, that's right. Because in this episode, they actually do scan for biosigns, and that's how they know that there's bodies aboard the ship that they're about to board. And I thought about that. I was like, when was Shaun talking about that? That's funny.
Well, even in the first episode, and it's because the first episode of Enterprise, they're able to identify, I think, Trip in one of those sphere pods or something like that because of biosigns.
That's right.
But a Voyager shuttlecraft could not do that. Or Janeway and Blonde Taurus didn't think about it.
We'll just make us something that the Singularity was screwing it up. So they go to the ship, and there's hull breaches and stuff like that, and possible the ship's been damaged by weapon discharge. But when they go to the ship, it is, I would call it kind of an interesting moment, because I know what they're going for. Imagine if you expected your first contact in space to be this grand, kind of picturesque kind of thing, and then you beam over to essentially a horror scene. I think that's kind of cool, but I didn't think the payoff wasn't cool. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. No, the payoff really isn't cool. They shuttle over there, and the ship's boring. They find what bothers me is that they leave. So after they find the aliens upside down with the tubes in them, Archer just listens to T'Pol and it's just we're out of here. Let's just go away, and they just fly off. Yeah. And I know there's that whole dinner scene where Archer gets mad at both Trip and T'Pol, and it's well, we need to go back. But I'm a little annoyed that he even just left in the first place.
Yeah, that seemed... Yeah, I didn't like that at all. And maybe that was just... I don't know. I don't know what that was for. I mean, to have
is that to show that they're not quite yet to Kirk or Picard levels where they're actually going to help out people, so they still have a little bit of our modern humanity in them, where they might just, I understand the episode's named Fight or Flight, so they're just going to fly away and forget about it. Because I can guarantee you that Kirk or Picard or even Sisko or Janeway, none of the captains that we knew before this that happened later would have left that. So does it show that there's still a evolution happening in humanity? I don't know, because that maybe to me is completely anti Star Trek.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that point. No, I definitely think they had it in their heads. At least Archer had it in his head the way that his first contact in space was going to go. And then to stumble upon this, I don't think ever in his wildest dreams he would ever think that he would, see this. I think that's kind of what they were going for. And why he was just kind of yeah, let's get the hell out of here. And, in that second when he saw that, T'Pol's logic made sense to him. I was maybe we shouldn't approach every situation as, let's just get in there. Kind of situation. Let's think about it. But then later on, when he has time to mull it over, it's kind of no, maybe those people did need our help, or maybe the situation is a lot more complex than we were led on to believe, or something warrants us going back. So I think that's kind of what it was. It's more of an Archer conflict within his own, within himself. That's going on, and maybe that's what Braga was trying to go for.
Maybe I could see that.
Yeah, but they're back. I mean, they're back, and once again, Dr. Phlox, he's pretty sweet. I like the Dr. Phlox and Hoshi.
Yeah,
because that's where the whole. That's where the whole we were talking about, what the slug's going through. Why not a slug? What the slugs are going through is her.
Yeah, Hoshi is upset and ashamed of herself a little bit, and then we go back to sickbay and the slug, and we hear this.
Not long after I became a physician, there was an explosion on a cargo ship orbiting my homeworld. I was part of the first medical team to arrive. There were 17 bodies on the bridge alone. I'd never seen that many dead people in one place before. Very disturbing. You have nothing to be ashamed of.
I screamed like a 12-year-old.
We're all frightened by unfamiliar things. You should be grateful that your body of experience doesn't include rooms full of corpses.
Nobody else screamed. Has she been eating?
Not so far. She has been under a great deal of stress. But I'm hoping this protein concentrate whets her appetite.
I'm a translator. I didn't come out here to see corpses hanging on hooks.
It goes without saying that you're going to encounter the unexpected.
Not corpses on hooks.
Have you ever considered that you might be happier back at the university? Teaching. I did it for years. It was quite rewarding.
I'm an exolinguist. I graduated second in my class. I spent 3 years in Starfleet training. I was Jonathan Archer's first choice for this mission. Every inhabited world we come to is going to be filled with language. Some will have hundreds of them. He needs me here.
If she doesn't take these nutrients, I'm afraid she won't survive.
Are you sure that's what she eats?
It's close enough.
I shouldn't have brought her on board. Maybe I could ask the captain to try to find a planet with an argon-rich atmosphere.
Might be easier just to feed her to my bat.
She needs to get back to an environment that is more suited to her.
Perhaps someplace where she could teach.
Yeah. So, did you nitpick this part? Because this really this irritated me. She says exolinguist. Okay, in Star Trek 2009, Uhura is a xenolinguist. Okay, a xenolinguist, I'm pretty sure, makes a lot more sense than an exolinguist. What the heck is an exolinguist? I know that's.
I don't know. I did not actually. I was more concerned with the slug metaphor and Dr. Fox talking about teaching for me to even realize the exolinguist. But you're absolutely right, and I don't quite know what that means.
Yeah, that's everybody. Like, we're all exolinguists because we don't speak the same language. But anyway, yeah, that was weird. I did like the beginning of this scene a lot. Like, I like Dr. Phlox as it is, but I really like the way the actor was able to convey, like, you can hear it in his voice that, like, he went through a traumatic experience, but at the same time he's conveying like confidence, because when like somebody comes to you and they're like in a time of need and going through like a really, you know, some traumatic experience, like you need to show them that, you know, it's okay and you need to be strong for them. The actor was able to do that with that character, and that is really impressive. To be able to come up with, you know, not only have to like the fictional situation in front of you that's happening with Hoshi, but have to like drum up or pretend that, you know, what happened to Phlox was real. That was really cool to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it's nice when you forget about that stupid metaphor. It is really nice to see Phlox kind of talk about it and kind of push and be a counselor of sorts. He did more counseling in that 2-minute clip than Deanna Troi did in 2 seasons, I feel like. Yeah.
The only thing that might be, and this is a little, and I don't know what the drafts look like. I don't know if they have the drafts or what. But this started to make me think that at some point when the writers were going through the drafts, that they merged some of the scenes that were supposed to be given to Archer, given to Hoshi, or that some of the story elements that happened to Hoshi were supposed to happen to Archer. And this scene lends credence to that in my eye, because this really should be a conversation that that Archer is having with Phlox. And it kind of seemed like the whole trip to Paul conversation that happens right after this was almost like a forethought or an afterthought. Sorry, was an afterthought to what happened, and used mostly just kind of like say, okay, let's get the action back to the ship. And in that context, in that way, because he does decide to go back, I think these two scenes, this scene and then the scene that follows, are kind of out of place in that way. But I really get the impression that this was designed or thought of to be like an Archer conversation of like, this is a traumatic experience. I didn't think it was going to be like this in space. And then Dr. Phlox or whoever would be saying like, you did what you had the reaction that anybody would have. I don't know. Did you get that sense too?
No. Once again, you thought about this a little bit heavier than I think I did. What you're saying absolutely makes sense to me, but I just never really gathered that. I think part of my reason was by the time at this point in the episode when these scenes started happening, I was already so berated with boredness that I didn't care. Because the first time that I watched this, I'll be honest with you, the first time that I watched this, I was so confused on what was going on, because they have the target practice for Malcolm, and then that just ends. And then they're at the derelict ship, and then they just leave. And then Archer gets mad during dinner, and then they go back. So, like, I was so just disoriented from this episode of what was going on throughout the plot. Like, I had a hard time, like, picking up on other things because of it. Because every time I was watching something, I'm just like, well, wait. Like, that scene just... It felt like scenes just didn't end properly to me, and they just jumped to something else.
Yeah, it does. It does. It is disjointed. It is disjointed in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I know that's not what you were talking about, but that's. I mean, I didn't really have a comment or an opinion on what you just said about any of it, because I never thought about any of that, just because I was more concerned on like, wait, well, where are we at right now, and like, why? How did we get here?
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, because the episode does move in that kind of zigzag, disjointed kind of thing. If you're not paying, yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, for me, I guess like where I start getting really like into the deepness of this is where I have to start looking for where they're going with characters and why these characters are doing what they're doing and why they're doing it. And to me, I mean, the fact that Archer did want to like escape from that situation really fast, like to me that was like the crux of the episode, and says more about how they viewed exploration and thought about exploration. So then start thinking about that. But then too, I mean, it's just a TV show.
Well, to just throw it back into like the Star Trek realm, if Archer was in Kirk's situation in Corbomite, because the Baylock ship in Corbomite says more or less turn around, and they don't turn around. I feel like if Archer were in this situation with T'Pol, they're like, all right, well, we're gonna go away. There's a big sphere here that's blinking yellow lights. We're gonna go away.
Yeah, I really agree with you. And why is that your captain? Like the captain of the flagship and the Federation at this point, I think they gave the number like there's not that many ships in the Federation at this point. Probably like 10 or 15 ships.
Well, at this point, the Federation isn't really even a Federation yet, and this is one of the few Starfleet ships. That's why it is the NX, because NX is the experimental classification.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, you would expect so much more. I mean, from all of them. Really from all of them.
Right. Yeah.
Even from T'Pol, you'd expect more. Even from Trip, you'd expect more. To Archer, to all of them. And unfortunately, maybe that's not like conveyed in such a clear way.
His crew is really whiny. Archer's crew is really whiny in this episode because Trip gets mad that he can't go on the away party. T'Pol just wants to oppose him at all times. Hoshi doesn't think she can do anything. Like, the entire episode I was watching, Archer was just bombarded with people that either, like, wanted to do something that he didn't want them to do or didn't want to do something that he wanted them to do.
Yeah. See, he needed to be like Lieutenant Rashek in Starship Troopers, where he's like, you do this job, where people wanted the job, and he's like, you do this job until you get killed or I find somebody better. And, they're there to do a job. And, I completely agree. Like, like the whininess is so bad because in Best of Both Worlds, I think is a good example of that because Shelby started to get like really whiny about the whole situation, but then Riker shot her down like right away. Like you need to be like that, you need to be a leader.
Yeah,
and they just didn't do that with Archer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so. Just to move along, they that big ship comes. This big ship comes. We'll never know what this big ship is, but it comes and it starts attacking the Enterprise. And we already know that humans have some sort of aphrodisiac in our blood or whatever it is.
Well, Phlox discovers that. He discovers that's why they're being harvested.
Yeah, so this ship tries to grapple the Enterprise and is taking over. Meanwhile, another one of these tube ships, one of the Axanar ships, drops into the space out of warp, and they're talking to this delightful Axanar guy. The Axanar aliens are so great. The one, like I love him. I love that he doesn't seem like he can understand. He's going back and forth from consoles trying to read what Hoshi's sending to him. But Archer's like, Hoshi, you need to talk to him. And then even T'Pol's like, Hoshi, you need to just talk. And she gets nervous. And me and you talked about this a little bit earlier, but they make her actually speak, and rather than running words through a translator computer console, she just goes to the forefront and talks to him through the view screen, and that's this scene.
Then forget the translator. Do it yourself.
Do what myself?
Talk to him.
It's impossible, sir. I haven't even learned their basic conjugations.
Talk to him, Hoshi. It doesn't have to be perfect.
You don't understand. I don't even know how to say pump. I'll get it all wrong. It'll just make things worse.
Things can't get much worse.
Sir.
Okay, so that would have been, had I played the entire clip that I wanted to record, would have been the clip where she goes to the forefront of the Enterprise and just starts speaking a bunch of gibberish. Well, in our minds, gibberish. To this Axanar guy. And it's great because, like I said before, too, she sells it with her, Linda Park sells it with her acting, her body language, and her actual just facial expressions of she's confused and worried, but ultimately ends up saving the day.
Yeah. Uta solo. And they shoot the pump.
Oh.
Yeah,
the Axanar is such a cute little alien. That Axanar is great. They just make him look confused. He's
really cool.
Behind his console, he's in front of his console. He's just always looking around. I don't know. He just seems like he's going to be a little buddy.
Yeah. Well, if you think about how funny the situation is, like, he's like coming up across when like there's like two Shauns. And, like, Shaun's like, I'm the real Shaun. And the other Shaun's like, I'm the real Shaun. and you have to decide because like they're coming across this like 2 ships, and he's just like, which one's the real one? Who's the friend and who's the not? I like that a lot. Yeah, that guy's cool. Guys, cool.
So
have you ever had to? Have you ever taken like French or anything like that, Shaun?
I did Italian in high school, but
oh god, that's just bad. Conjugating verbs is like the worst. Is like so horrible. It's so horrible, and that's like what you start out with. So yes, I liked that.
Yeah, I have no idea what it would be like to be any sort of real linguist and try to figure out languages. I feel like that would be so hard and impossible, but
yeah, totally. So she overcomes her lack of confidence. She persuades the newcomers that the aggressive alien ship is responsible for attacking their people. And they're finally able to shoot. Well, they're not able to shoot, actually. They have some, targeting lock problems or sensor problems, something like that.
No, well, at the same time, they still actually... this is before the beginning part when the ship comes in, with the big ship, before the Axnar ship comes in. Mm-hmm. And Hoshi talks to him before that clip that we just listened to. They try to fire torpedoes, and the torpedoes just don't do anything.
Shooting blanks over there.
No.
And it just...
They break...
Yeah, they break
free.
Ahead. Oh, sorry. No, you go ahead. I was going to
say after they break free, Malcolm's like, I want to fire a torpedo, and Archie's like, go ahead, because magically he readjusted the sensors or the calibration on the trajectory, and so they were able to get like a direct hit, and the Axnar ship is firing on it too.
I like when they try to fire the torpedoes, and he's like left side, right side. He says like that, like the sides. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Like it only shoots like one at a time. And then, like, on their second torpedo that they shot, like, it was pretty sweet how they just fired that, like, green laser blast and blew their torpedo up. That was pretty sweet. Yeah. So, Hoshi fine. Well, they have to get the slug. Did you get that last scene with the slug?
Yeah, I did get that. So,
because that's pretty much it.
They made a friend today, and it was because of Hoshi. I think something like that is what Archer says, which is funny because at the end of Caretaker, remember the Kazon tells Janeway, "You made an enemy today."
I didn't even think about that. That's so ironic.
Yeah. Anyway. The last scene of the episode is Phlox and Hoshi. Again, Phlox and Hoshi. They're down on a planet now. Archer says that he was going to do a special favor for her, and they stopped off, I guess, at this planet. And this is her saying goodbye to her slug.
This isn't exactly like the place you came from, but it's close enough. It's not that hard to adapt. You're gonna do just fine here.
It got cut off from there because the rest of it is just music and sound effects. But that's the end of the episode, right there. It's I get it. The slug's a metaphor for Hoshi.
Yep. So, the guy who directed this, let's talk about him a little bit.
All right.
Okay, his name is Alan Croker. And the reason why I wanted to talk about him, he actually directed a lot of Star Trek episodes. His name comes up quite a bit. And he directed the very last episode of Voyager. So he went from Voyager directly to this.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's such a weird jump because this episode is so empty, so void of a lot of things. Even at the like worst part where Voyager was, like it wasn't even this kind of like meh. Like it wasn't even this kind of like boring. And I mean, once again, I don't know if that's direction or if that's just, writer. I don't know what you think. What do you think about that?
I don't know. It has to be. I haven't seen Homecoming. Correct. That's the last episode.
Endgame.
I haven't seen. Oh, Endgame. I haven't seen that episode in quite a while. So I don't remember it that well. It would be interesting for me to go revisit it now. I remember liking it, but I haven't seen it probably in years. But to kind of do this whole, like, well, especially since we've been watching all like the original, like origin stories, first episodes recently, it'd be nice to go see like one of those late episodes of Voyager and just see how it compares to what I know now. Because I honestly I don't remember it that well. I'll say that this episode probably wasn't terribly directed, but there's nothing great that happens in this episode either.
No, and that was actor Jeff Ricketts, by the way, as the alien there. Did a great job. Great guest spot.
Yeah.
I guess if you're an actor, I mean, that's kind of like, because you live off of your headshot and everything, right? Like that's your that's your resume, and then you're just like, yeah, I played this alien. And then you look at the alien, and you're just like, oh wow, that doesn't look like you at all.
Right.
You're hired. No. What do you think about this? I need to digest it. I want to like it on so many levels. I want to like here's the truth. I want to like Enterprise. Every week that I watch an Enterprise episode, I say I want to like Enterprise. At the very end of the week, I don't hate and I don't dislike Enterprise or love Enterprise more than I did the week before. It's just the same to me. What do you think?
I will say after watching this episode, it reminded me why I did not like Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah.
It wasn't even called Star Trek Enterprise for the first year or two. It was just called Enterprise, by the way. But yeah, no, this episode, I don't like this episode.
I didn't know that.
I probably wasn't quite as harsh on this as I was DS9 because I didn't have a whole, series to go behind me on DS9, but I think so. As we're talking right now, we've reviewed the first 2 episodes of every show so far, and I think this might be my least favorite episode of any show, but that'll get kind of more revealed next week. We've got.
So it was really just called Enterprise. I did not know that. That really, that's kind of a shame, because then, like, why have you could just have this any show, like it didn't.
Right.
To put it in the Star Trek family is. So then, did he even want to do like a Star Trek show after Voyager, and was Star Trek just an afterthought that this should be just a Star Trek show?
I think it was always made as a Star Trek prequel, but I even if you notice, like I watch these on Netflix, and if I remember right, the intro on this, that terrible it's been a long time intro, it doesn't even say Star Trek in the first season. It just says Enterprise as the on the title.
I guess
screen.
I never pay attention. I never honestly knew that. That is something. Yeah, it just seems like a forethought of them wanting to do this show then.
Well, it's funny that they added Star Trek later on in that regard then. So it was like, oh, well, I don't know. I feel like they probably had this ran for 7 seasons like they intended it to. we may have different opinion. We would absolutely have different opinions. It's a nonsensical statement. If it ran for an extra 3 years, me and you would both have a different opinion of this.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. I mean, that's just there's no argument about that. But that fourth season started trying to do stuff. So maybe had they gone on to season 5 and 6, we would have been like, oh, well, this is where it happens, like 5 and 6. And then we would have forgiven seasons 1 and 2 and 3.
Yeah. Maybe the whole point is that, that isn't like... It's not... like we were talking about earlier with the Federation, it's not really the Federation stuff in Starfleet as we know it. So then maybe that's the point they're trying to make, is that like that homologous entity, that's Star Trek, and until that comes about. But once again, I don't know the episodes well enough to say like, oh, this, like the last episode of the first season is the defining moment of when Starfleet comes about, because I don't know anything really about this show.
Right.
But maybe
but
like...
see
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the fourth season's really where they start trying to do, like, walk that line of things that we all know. So that's where we get, like, the Dr. Soon and the Augments kind of origin story, and they try to tie Khan and Data together, which works out okay. They also get the Klingon... disease, like how the Klingons lose their ridges story, which works out okay. We were talking about Peter Weller recently with that Terra Prime episode, which again is not a terrible episode. So there are things in there that they started to do, like they could have kept, and assuming that they kept going on that plane, they would have had some other good episodes. You could have done more. You want to hear more about the Romulan War and how the neutral war was set up, or the neutral zone was set up, and not about the Xindi. The Xindi never existed before. They wasted their time the first 2 seasons, I feel like, trying to tell original stories when they could have told original stories within a preset timeline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could have... Yeah, I mean, everything is different. And it's just not... I just don't mean, like, what you'd expect at the beginning of everything. Like, the Vulcans, like, this is just echoing what you've said already, but the Vulcans are just so different. Everybody you'd expect to be the first pioneers are so different. Like, like Captain Kirk's fondness for thinking about Garth Vizar, like the way that I imagined like this show should have ran out is like that's the same way if instead of like Garth Vizar just replace like Captain Archer, like these are legendary people in the eyes of like Kirk's generation of where they're following in the footsteps of these people. So like in my head, like these characters should have been so much more, where they don't turn in just Hoshi like feigning claustrophobia and saying, oh, I don't want to go on this away mission, and then going on and then coming into her own, realizing, yeah, I am important and he chose me for a reason, and then having that done through a whole metaphor of a slug let free, of let freedom let you be yourself. And it's just like, if you know what I'm saying, like that's not like a story that I'd imagine, like Captain Kirk sitting down by the fireplace and looking on his pad and reading about of like what they did, like if he has a history book and read about what they did. Like that's like the way that I've always viewed Star Trek Enterprise, is that it should be like a history book that Kirk is reading.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's not what it was, but I agree that that's probably what it should have been.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, those later episodes, from what I've seen from the later episodes, I really, really, really liked. I've really liked. There's also an episode, I can't remember what it is. It's where Archer is testing out a like the first warp ship kind of thing. Not like the Phoenix. I mean, obviously, that's the first warp ship, but like one of those kind of like faster than warp kind of thing. But like that episode was really, really good because it like showed like that pioneering spirit that I think this episode could have done, and it just didn't. Like, it should have just been an Archer episode. It shouldn't have been a Hoshi episode at all, if it was going to go in that direction of self-discovery.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you probably want to see more Archer at that point because he was probably more interesting. But
all right.
I don't know.
We talked a lot about this.
We did.
Episode. You'd almost expect it to be a Voyager episode. So, what would you like to rate this as?
I'll give it 2 terrariums.
2 terrariums.
2 sluggish terrariums.
I am gonna give it. What am I gonna give it? I gotta think of something really, really funny. I'm gonna give it 2 Jurassic Park 3s and a Linda Park. Linda Park was in Jurassic Park 3. Did you know that?
Was she really? No, I had no idea.
Yeah, she plays Dr. Settler's. Secretary.
Huh.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. So 2 Jurassic Park 3s and a Linda Parker.
Fair enough.
All right. Let's get on. Let me see what else we got. We got our Trek.
I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
This time we'll handle things without your help.
They're doing their part. Are you?
All right. Your turn, Shaun.
All right. So I pulled this out of Twitter yesterday, and I retweeted it on the Trek Brothers Twitter, which is at the Trek Brothers, in case anybody was wondering. It's a Good Magazine article. I don't know what Good Magazine is, but I pulled it out. It's a story that we're all familiar with. And if you go on the website, their website, the intro or the top of the page is Nichelle Nichols in the 60s as Uhura against the Starfield. And basically, yesterday, we record on Tuesdays usually, and the title of this article is How Martin Luther King Convinced Nichelle Nichols to Stick with Star Trek. And so yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. And this is a famous story. Chris knows the story. I know the story. Everybody that likes Star Trek knows the story. Nichelle Nichols played Uhura. She was going to leave after the first season. And as the story goes, her and Dr. King were at a NAACP dinner of some sort or gathering together. Not together, but they were both there. Nichelle Nichols was probably there with her people, and Martin Luther King was there with his people. And he went over and talked to her, and just talked about how he liked her and loved how she was on Star Trek, and she was like, he complimented her on the way she acted, and she was gracious, as the story goes, and said, I'm going to leave. And this was during the first season, so this was in 66 or maybe 67. She's like, I'm going to go tell. And again, this is how rumor how history has told the story. Nichelle already quit. Nichelle already told Gene Roddenberry, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. She just didn't feel like she was doing very much, because again, she mostly just said, hailing frequencies open, Captain. But her and Dr. King talked, and he was just like, no, you can't do that. You can't quit. And she said something along the lines of, like, you know, Dr. King, I wish I could be marching with you. And Martin Luther King replied with something along the lines of, Nichelle, you don't understand. We don't need you to march. You are marching. You're reflecting what we're fighting for. And it's rumored that, you know, they didn't let anybody, their kids, or, you know, it was thank you so much for everything. And just her being there. And this was the first time that Black people got treated as equals in a primetime event, and it was so epic and so evolved that even Dr. King, you know, and I don't know, this is me speculating, you know, even if all Nichelle Nichols said was hailing frequencies open, she was actually kind of a main character and Black, and that was more than anybody had ever got before, and that in itself was amazing. And then we can, you know, further it on down the years where we talk about the interracial kiss and everything like that, but just that initial thing where Martin Luther King, who even when he was alive was iconic, and in death has become uber iconic, convinced her just to hang on to that role of Uhura is amazing, and I love it, and it's great. And you know, when you look back on it, I think she had as big of a role as any of the side characters outside of maybe Scotty. So it was probably worth it to her as much as it was anybody else. And look at the legacy that's there. Look at the legacy. I mean, is Martin Luther King really the reason that we still have Uhura? Because without him, maybe she would have just became like a Grace Lee Whitney character that was just in a couple episodes and then kind of referenced throughout. So that's kind of my track.
Oh, that's a good track. That's a good story. I like that story. I like hearing that every time. Yeah, it was a good Martin Luther King Day, actually. I learned something that I never knew. One of his favorite hymns, which is If I Can Help Somebody, that was actually heard for the first time here in Denver, Colorado. And
really?
Yeah. And he took that. I believe it was written here by a lady here in Colorado, and it was taken back to his church in the South, and then it spread, and now it's a really famous hymn. But yeah, he heard it first in Colorado. That's I'm so glad he did that too, and I'm sure she's glad that he did that too, and she did, yeah. and I'm sure she's very happy that she did stay in, because I mean she's a pioneer, even to this day. In that sense, just the power that that this vehicle in a TV show could have like that is just astounding to me.
Right. You know, the article that I posted on our Twitter is not extensive, or there's nothing unique there. That story is very famous, or at least very famous to me. I've always been drawn to that story, that she was going to go away, and then because I heard it when I was a kid, I was like, why would you leave Star Trek? You're on Star Trek, not understanding. But she wanted to do other things, other creative things, and luckily enough, somebody who actually had a lot of foresight in his life had the foresight for her, and was like, nope, you stay there. You're actually doing something. something worthwhile. And I mean, we're 50 years down the road. I guess probably not well, yeah, I guess 50 from that point in time. And there's still a lot of social strife and still a lot of inequality as far as both gender and race. And she came up, unfortunately, short on both of those things, at least in our current world. And it's so great that she was able to make such a wonderful success out of herself, given all the ways that people will put her down, or could have put her down. I always feel weird talking about race and gender inequality because I am white and I'm a guy, and I'm always like, oh my god, it's like I'm like the Louis C.K. person. It's just like, well, there's no reason that like I should be up front because I've had a millennium of unchecked prosperity of my ancestors behind me. So like everybody should just be able to shit upon me because like who am I to say anything or talk anything about it? But
yeah,
it is great. Yeah, like I mean, that's part of the reason Star Trek's great. It's great. It's who else or where else in 1968 or 66 would you have ever found a black woman, an alien, an Asian man, a Russian person, some weird Scottish drunk, and some Jewish guy spewing out orders, all get together and be friends and be happy and be great. Like it would have never happened, never. But under that thin little guise of sci-fi and our wonderful Gene Roddenberry to make it happen, like it's so great, and it's wonderful that Star Trek is credited for that first interracial kiss, because I mean that alone right there makes me not feel like a nerd, because anybody that thinks that Star Trek's nerdish, it's like, well, Star Trek's nerdish, but Star Trek is also very progressive and very forward thinking. So F you.
Yeah, totally. Wow. Well, for mine, I gotta say, I made a couple of mistakes in my life that I'm not proud of. The first mistake was when I was in Dr. Reese's historiography class, and he asked, who here knows what the Zimmerman telegraph is? And I said, that's the telegram that Hitler sent to Mexico. And it was a World War I telegram. The second mistake I made in life is completely forgetting about Star Trek Voyager Elite Force last week when we were talking about video games. Now, this was about... This is probably why I forgot about it. About 15 years ago. I don't even know when this came out. This is an Activision game. This was played by me non-stop. I mean, I loved this game. It was built on the Quake engine, and the storyline was just, to this day, it's probably I love it. It's the best Star Trek game. Seriously, it really is. It's a first-person shooter game, but the storyline, and it's all voiced by the cast of Star Trek Voyager, and it takes place. It's like an episode. It's like you really watched like a whole episode that was never on television, but it takes place in this like void where this creature is able to capture starships, and there's like you're trying to like figure out, first of all, who this like mysterious being is. And what's really great is last week Shaun had made mention about the episode where you have the Maquis that are training and to become Starfleet officers, and there's the bullying and stuff like that. Well, this episode, this game, you're actually in that outfit, and this outfit is sent to kind of like explore the other starships and stuff. They're like the Marines now of Voyager, essentially. But what's really cool is like you have like starships that have been in this area that have been brought by this being from across time. So like you have to fight like people from like the original series Enterprise, like they're in the original series uniforms and stuff like that, but they think you're the enemy. Like they don't recognize like, oh, you're Federation. And then like you're dealing with like Klingons that that are from the same time period, and a whole bunch of different species. And then it just so happens like there's Borg there, and then they get this like plan that they're going to board this Borg ship and steal this device that's going to be able to get them back home. They end up getting raided. It's just like a really like big adventure, one adventure after another. And then at the very end, you have to fight the boss, which ends up being this. I think they're actually called the Voth, that are this really ridiculous. Like they're like Borg on steroids kind of thing, where they have like a bunch of technology and organic matter and stuff like that. And it's just a rip-roaring game. But anyway, that's I wanted to say that.
It's neat. I have no idea what this game is. It sounds neat. It actually sounds really fun. And you're right. There are probably Star Trek games that we didn't talk about last week that are probably kind of fun. But again, I'm going to repeat what I said last week, where I just feel like Star Trek games kind of get the shaft of sorts, where they're either boring or they're forgotten.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe Elite Force is one of those ones that falls into the realm of forgotten, where it's probably a good game, but people didn't really play it. Yeah, I mean, something based off the Quake engine, why not? Like, Quake engine is obviously tried and true.
Yeah, it was. It had a sequel, actually, also. There was an Elite Force 2 that took place on the Enterprise, Enterprise E. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun one. Not as fun as the first one. The first one was just the storyline is what made it. And the fact that you had all the original actors, like that to this day is, that is my absolute favorite game.
That always helps.
Having totally.
Them voice over, yeah.
And you can't like I was gonna make mention, because this is my like STO section, so I was gonna make mention of something that's going on this week. There's a global initiative, which is bleh, where if you contribute to your fleets, like you have to. The thing is, it depends upon every single fleet in the entire game contributing to their own fleet, and once you reach your tier 1, you're gonna get like extra XP. But at the point, like, we're coming up on the 6th anniversary of the game already. If you don't have like a lot of XP, or if you're having like trouble how to figure out XP, then you probably just started. There's like too much XP in the game as it is. Just play the storylines. You'll be able to level up if you just play the storylines. But yeah, I've never been a fan of global events, and I've never been a fan of global events because they always make the servers run really, really, really laggy. But then, like, when I started thinking about like doing the show this week, and I was going to talk about that, I was just like, talk about games, and then I was just like, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, Activision, man, go to that. Man, you know what? Now I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find a what do they call it? They don't call it a mod. What is it where you
emulator?
Yeah, an emulator. I'm going to find an emulator. I'm sure I could find one online real quick. I'm going to find an emulator of that game, and then I bet you like it'll just become like the Star Trek Voyager Elite Force section instead of STO.
All right.
No, I can't give up on STO. We're going to have an event this year, and I hope they bring back the Omega Particles.
All right.
Omega Particles are from Star Trek Voyager.
Okay.
I tied it all in. I don't know. I'm just rambling.
I played
yes.
I played Timelines today for the first time.
Oh, what'd you think of it?
The cell phone game. I don't know yet. I'm still discovering it. It doesn't look like something that I want to play, but I'm going to stick with it for a little while longer just to see.
Are you collecting a lot of characters there?
I don't have a few. Like I honestly, I just went through the tutorial and I was like, all right, well, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in Pixels, Star Trek Pixels. It looks more fun.
Don't. Oh my god. I got so addicted to that game. I was so addicted to that game. That game's hard. Because then what you have to do... Have you already started playing?
No.
Okay, well, I'll just give you a tip.
Pixels.
Well, go ahead and get involved, but I'll give you a tip right now. I'll give a tip to all of you people out there playing Pixels. Trexels.
Right.
Make sure you train your officers. Because the later missions get really, really difficult. Like, it doesn't matter how much resources you can get, because eventually, like, you'll have all of your resources upgraded anyway. So you'll be collecting a lot of resources as it is, the yellow and the blue and the red. The thing that's not like well known is like eventually when you get to the game, like it gets so hard if you don't train your characters. But why that sucks is because you got to wait so long for them to go through the training. Like whether you go through the holodeck or you go through that little Starfleet Academy that you can build, you wait so long for that to get done, and then when you do it, you get so little. Like you get so little experience, and then the way that it's done is like you can either have engineering experience, science experience, command experience, and there's another experience if I remember. And like you only get like 10, but then like there's missions that call for like an average. So like if you have 4 characters, and they don't have like that average very high in that one particular thing that's called for that one mission, then you have to spend like weeks and weeks training them just in that one field. So anyway, that's Trexels. It's a very infuriating game. It's highly addictive. I like the fact that you could build Voyager now, and I think they have like that Olympic class from the last episode of TNG. All Good Things. They have that.
Yeah, the Sphere, Dr. Crusher ship.
Yeah, I always liked that. I always liked her helmsman, and then I was so sad when the helmsman died in that episode. It's like I like every helmsman they ever had. Lieutenant Hawk in Star Trek First Contact, my favorite helmsman dies, becomes a Borg and gets shot. Every helmsman I've ever liked. Look at the first episode, Carbonite Maneuver. Like that helmsman. Is he there anymore? Nope. What is it with me and helmsmans? All right, let's get to Film Trek.
Fair enough.
Saddle up. Lock and load. Star Trek Insurrection is the #1 action movie in America. Moving people out! The New York Times calls it seductively appealing.
Watching your movies, take a few notes. It was fun.
Take it away, Shaun.
Move these people out! All right. So we haven't had a whole lot of conversation about Star Trek 3 since we've been doing this. So we're going to talk a little bit about Star Trek 3, and I'm going to play this clip before we even get into it.
As promised, is all yours, sir. All systems automated and ready.
A chimpanzee and 2 trainees could do this.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I'll try not to take that personally. My friends, I can't ask you to go any further. Dr. McCoy and I have to do this. The rest of you do not.
Admiral, we're losing precious time.
What course, please, Admiral?
Mr. Scott?
I'd be grateful, Admiral, if you give the word.
The wind be at our backs. Station, please.
Engage all the systems.
Aye. Engage.
Clear all moorings.
Cleared, sir.
1/4 impulse power.
1/4 impulse.
Oh, so good. I just love that here's Kirk and McCoy. They've taken over the Enterprise. Here's everybody else. He gives them that ultimatum of, here's your careers on the line. You don't have to do this. Like, you can go back. And everyone's just absolutely with him. Of course, why would they not be? Part of the reason why I played that clip so loud too, which I apologize, is just because the music is so amazing. If there was a substitute for Star Trek II's soundtrack, it would be that part of Star Trek 3, because that middle part of Star Trek 3 is so great. I really do like that. Just the whole. I'll talk about this at some point, but that whole little kind of Ocean's 11 of how, they all have their own little part of what they're going to do to take the Enterprise back. And then when they're on the Enterprise, which we just listened to, they actually take it back. And then after that, they take the Enterprise out of the space dock, out of the starbase, which is great, but also very dry as far as audio. Just really like it. Really just Kirk being cavalier because that's Kirk, and then his crew just falling in, his main crew, just the four of them falling in line right behind him. Great scene. I love it. It's probably the best part in kind of a mediocre movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo just a couple of things. Let's say that has one of my favorite moments in Star Trek film history too, and that's when Scotty sabotages the Excelsior, and I just love the sound of when the Excelsior comes to a stop, because it sounds like an old car, and it's just so that whole scene. And I love it because the admiral that's on the ship is just cocky as all hell, and the ship is just it's so great. I love that scene. That score too, where you were talking. I just love how they slowed down the da 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 da. They slowed down the theme, and that is just so perfect. But then it goes right into the theme that we heard in the motion picture. That's fantastic.
And it even starts out when they are the very beginning part of that clip is them the original theme, the original series theme.
Yeah, to have that in a movie, is really good. Sorry, go on.
No. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this on kind of a tangent note. Do you remember the bridge of the Enterprise in that movie? Or not the Enterprise, but the bridge of the Excelsior in that movie?
Yeah, it was one wide open room, and there was just chairs all around. There were stations all around, but the captain was completely by himself.
And the computers look completely different than anything else. They're all more. They try to make it look, and they succeeded looking completely different. But it's funny because when you see the Excelsior later on in Star Trek 6, it looks more like the traditional kind of bridge setup with a console in the middle. This did have a console in the middle and a captain's chair, but that bridge was completely different. I was watching this last night and I was like, wow, that's so different. Like, it was good. Like, they try to make it look so different and so unique and so futuristic.
And he has those armrests too that like go up and down. The captain does. It's kind of like he has to like sit down and like get ready to like go. It's so cool. And then the dude has a baton anyway, which is just so awesome.
Right.
Yeah, and the graphics are like completely different because you don't see the buttons like are different too. They did a really good job if they were setting out to make a statement about like this is going to be the first like different kind of ship you're going to see. It's just too bad that they didn't carry that on actually in Star Trek 6 actually.
That'd be crazy to see like just such a different ship like that, but they probably didn't have the budget.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be cheaper because I do remember it was like there was like no space, like it was just all space, like it was so huge. It's just like one giant oval.
I was gonna say too, if you noticed in that on the like since we're talking about the Excelsior, did you notice who the helmsman was?
Who was it?
It's Miguel Ferrer, who's in RoboCop.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't know the name. Who did he play?
Miguel Ferrer played. He's he's the young guy that takes over. What's his name? Bob.
Okay.
Bob Morton.
Oh, Bob. Oh my God! Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I'm gonna have to go back and see that.
Go watch Star Trek 3. Yeah, because Bob Morton is the helmsman of the Excelsior.
That's so awesome! Oh, that's so awesome! Oh, I freaking love that. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't realize either. Like I said, I was watching it last night, and I realized I was like, "Hey, that's the guy from RoboCop." And
oh my God! As soon as that is so crazy. He did that. That is so crazy. He did that. Yeah, I just looked it up now. It's totally him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, I'm going to end this little bit of Film Trek. I'm doing the rare thing where I have two clips for Film Trek, but so they go through, they break down the Excelsior, which is amazing, like you said, where it sounds like an old car, like breaking down, like sounds like it's busting some stuff. And then they get towards Genesis, and Kirk tells his main crew this.
Gentlemen, your work today has been outstanding. I intend to recommend you all for promotion in whatever fleet we end up serving. Best speed to Genesis.
Very William Shatner to me, but just he gives a line. Captain Kirk's just being Captain Kirk, and just best speed to Genesis.
That's definitely the best part of that movie. I don't the hokey pokiness of that movie. I don't really care for. It took a lot. It took a lot for suspension of disbelief in that movie. The Baba Haga kind of like weird witch thing they meet with. That weird lady. I don't know. What is she? What is her name? She has a name. You know what I'm talking about, right? Of course.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember her name though.
Yeah, but that whole thing, and then with the consciousness being in McCoy and stuff like that. I don't know. That was weird.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, the film's okay.
No, it's got its good parts. I really think it does have like good moments in it.
You Klingon bastard. Oh, yes. Well, that's good. Anything else you want to say?
No. That's it for this week.
Sweet. Fantastic. All right. Let's get to audience track.
Open hailing frequencies.
Frequencies open, sir.
This is Jean-Luc Picard, captain of the Enterprise. Klaxon wie Bleichplan Kamik.
All right, you can get a hold of us. Where can they get a hold of us, Shaun?
Well, you can find us on Gmail at The Trek Brothers. The Trek Brothers at Gmail. You can find us on Twitter at The Trek Brothers. You can find Chris on Twitter at Lethargic Nerd. You can find me on Twitter at Shaun Makita, ShaunMikita. We do have a website. The website is, Chris might have to help me with it. That's not the actual name of it. It's
The Trek Brothers. The Trek Brothers. .wix.com/home.
That's it. Yes, we are at Wix with a website. It's actually kind of a neat website. I think it looks all right. You can find all of our episodes there. You can find our blogs there. Also, YouTube. Look us up at YouTube at The Trek Brother Podcast. Again, the website is thetrekbrothers.wix.com/home. You can find everything there. Our YouTube links are there. Our blog is there. Our Twitter is there. So it's all kind of a all-in-one encapsule everything. But you can find us everywhere else individually outside of that too.
Yes. Oh, I've been everywhere. Los Angeles, somewhere, something, doo-doo. Look at that. They put his character as USS Excelsior Executive Officer, but he's at the helm. Well, there was
Bob
like
Morton?
Yeah, but there was like no other seat for him anyway.
Yeah. Well, he did have lines. He actually spoke, so.
Yeah, that's true. Default. They had different uniforms too.
Did they?
Yeah, I don't remember any of this now that I'm looking on that. Yeah, go to the Memory Alpha webpage for USS Excelsior personnel and scroll down. Like, they all had different uniforms, but these pictures are from Star Trek 6.
Huh.
But it's a completely different uniform. But I'm wondering if this is... Oh, you know what? They did this for Flashback. The Voyager episode. But it looks like some of this is from...
yeah.
So they wanted... So in the show, then, they have different uniforms. They didn't go with the traditional tunic, then. Look at that.
That's interesting.
That's weird. Sorry, that was a weird thing to bring up in the middle of a podcast. But yes, contact us and let us know what you think. Because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm always curious what I think, too.
You can always troll us and call us a pile of hay, too, if you need to.
They so had to listen to the episode to know that. Like, how else?
I don't know. I have no idea.
We got a troll. We got a troll out there. One troll and nobody else. We're just lucky. All right. Anything else, Shaun?
I think that's it. I think we're done for this week.
Okay, nice.
Oh,
yeah.
One thing we should talk about next week. Next week we're doing something a little bit different. There will be no episode next week. No episode. No talk track.
No, it's going to be something new and exciting that I'm interested in. We're going to do I can't do a sound. I can't do a sound effect of a snare drum. So pretend this is a snare drum. Like that. It's a countdown of these past 11 episodes that we've talked about thus far and where we rank them in the scheme of things.
Right. Yeah, there's going to be countdown amongst countdowns.
Yes, plenty of countdowns. Will Hoshi be number one with her crazy claustrophobia she doesn't have? Or will Janeway be crazy and doesn't know which Voyager is which? Or will Data be drunk as heck? Who knows on the Trek Brothers podcast?
What we're doing is basically joining the popular internet thing and just doing a little bit of a countdown because people like those. We like them. Why not?
Yeah. Why not? I like them too. All right, I'm going to take us out on the theme song of Merryweather.
Good.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to us this week, and we hope that you tune in next week. And hey, it's okay if you like Star Trek Enterprise. I don't really care what Trek you like, so long as you like Star Trek. All right, I'm Chris. You have a good week.
I'm Shaun. Goodbye.